I think that us not being able to like meet their expectations of what they think is supposed to happen sometimes creates that pressure and those anxieties.
Welcome back, everybody. This is part 2 of When Helpers Feel the Heat, a discussion on therapist anxiety, our experiences, our challenges, and how we work through them. Your host, Jeremiah and I here, picking up where we left off in part 2. Stay tuned in 2 weeks where we'll have an editorial episode with Cecilia Sanchez-Cruz and wrap all this up. Until then, enjoy.
Definitely felt like for me, it comes in more of a form of like, oh yeah, the perfect therapist, the great therapist who's always effective, always has results, always has a plan, always know where we're going. And it's like to be like, I'm responsible for change and be able to kind of like, wait a minute, no. Like how tightening, how restricting and overwhelming that would be if we are solely the person responsible for you being well and taking care of and for you to get your goals. Being able to kind of take a step back and free yourself of that responsibility is so enlightening, so alleviating. Being able to kind of get there has been tough. What happens. I'm doing my best in the session. You are doing your best in the session. Once you leave this room, I hope that I've done my best to, motivate you or do all I can. But what you do outside is totally up to you. And that's where the work will be done. That's where the growth will happen outside of this room. One of the podcasts I listened to was like learning can be masturbation. So at least then it can be pleasurable for you to learn and gain insight on yourself as much as you would like, and it may tickle your fancy, but in the day, action will have to be tied to it. Otherwise, it'll be, nothing. To be able to kind of take a step back with that and just like, hey, you know what? Let's be realistic. Let's actually have clear expectations that actually can happen and really put the ownership on you has been helpful. Eventually get to a point where you're actually using your intuition of, hey, I feel frustrated. Let's bring that into the room. Let's talk about it. A lot of the times, I have to remind myself, like, I'm not the one doing the heavy lifting. It's one of those things where your supervisor tells you this one thing and then you're like, what? Of course, duh. And then like years later, it's like,
yeah.
Not
know what you were talking about.
Now we know. So at least then, you're not going to work harder than your client. Mm-hmm. Client's supposed to be the one that does that. You try your best, you give the best approaches. You don't necessarily need to, have the A1. It's just do your best and be you. And all you need to be is yourself in the room. And so I think I've definitely prided myself in trying to provide clients with like, hey, we're going to think more realistically in a way so that you in your mind are much more freer. You have much more space to work with and things are not so heavy. And so at least then, how could you not grant that to yourself as well? To be able to take a step back from that, I think that can only come with time. How was your journey with that, Ceci?
Yeah, I think that hitting that wall treatment in the client is not anything that I ever felt made me super worried, because I feel like I always understood that spoke to the client's readiness, right? And sometimes they come into your office and they're not ready, and you do as much as you can to help them get there, but sometimes they don't.
Yeah.
I think that I learned early on that therapy can be very prolonged, right?
Yeah.
It's not like you're going to come in and you're going to finish your 10 sessions, whatever it might be, and everything's going to be great. It's going to be something you'll revisit for some clients, not for all. But I'm gentle with it, I'll bring it up to the client. I'll let them know that it's feeling like we're kind of stuck or paused. I'll give them an opportunity to reflect on that. And then I put it on the table. I said, is this a time to pause, maybe? I don't like to say end or terminate. I just say pause, right? Take a break. Again, because I'm working with, younger kids. A lot of the times that's what feels good. And I know that we didn't finish the treatment. I know that we maybe didn't even get into, what their referral was for. But yeah, sometimes that's just where we end up.
Mm-hmm.
And I always tell them, you can always come back.
Right.
As soon as something changes, or if you feel like you're ready to continue, you can always come back.
Yeah. Doesn't it feel kind of weird to be in that place in life of like, no, we're supposed to be always going. We have a way, we have a direction. But then to get to a place able to take that step back in this world, there's a possibility you may show up but not ready, and be able like, hey, it's not me. It's not my responsibility. I'm doing what I need to do. and I'm confident I'm doing what I need to do. And it's all delegating the responsibilities appropriately. Like it feels like we're out of sync with the client, but that's when we provide the best work. Does that feel like, what was that, Cat 22?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think for me, the way that I look at it is like by taking that step back and not sort of always encouraging action and just kind of sitting with wherever the client is, we show them that we can meet them where they are. I feel like that's more than half of it, of the work to me. However you show up when you come in this office, like you can show up that way. And I'm not going to shame you if it's a different way than I thought you were going to show up. And if you don't feel ready for taking some sort of an action step, you don't ever have to worry about me criticizing you for that. I might encourage you, I might gently nudge you to step out of your comfort zone, but I'm never gonna chew you out for not doing something that you committed to doing, or not drinking less or not smoking less. We can certainly process like what made that difficult for you, but if you come in here and I shame you for that, I'm committing, in my opinion, like the cardinal sin of therapy is shaming a client or making them feel unsafe in your office. So I feel like, going back to what you were saying, like when you take that step back, you let your clients know, like, however you show up in here is how you show up. And I'm going to welcome that.
Yeah, that can be healing.
Mm-hmm.
Therapists who aren't able to kind of take that step back and kind of lean into, no, I'm responsible for this. I need to do better. I think if you can think back to times when you guys have been into that situation, how heavy has that journey been with like relying on yourself to be that responsible?
I think it showed up the heaviest when I was working with clients who were in recovery, because, it was such a big issue. It had to do with their health. So I felt like if I'm not doing this right, and you go back out into the world after you do your 30 days or your 60 days in here and you relapse and you come right back, I will have let you down, and you entrusted me with essentially like your life, your well-being. So I think that was what forced me to take a step back and remove that responsibility from myself. Like, of course I have a job to do, and I'm going to be as thorough as I can in that job. But ultimately, when you leave your time here, you will be hit with a bunch of triggers to use. And in that moment, you will have to implement those coping skills that we talked about. And it's always going to be easier said than done. And sometimes it might not be possible and you might relapse. But if that happens, know what to do, know who to call, know what the safest thing is to do for you. So I was able to, I think that experience helped me realize, like, yeah, it is a big responsibility, but the work has to be done by the people we support. And it's going to be scary for them to try something maybe they've never had the chance to try before. So if it doesn't happen ideally, if there's hiccups along the way, that's just what it's like to try something you've never tried, or change in a way that's really, really scary. So if that happens, that doesn't mean I'm not good at what I do. It just means that that's what change looks like. It's never linear. And then oftentimes, like, the bigger the change, the less linear it is. So I feel like that experience really kind of forced me to let go of some of that responsibility.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I'm trying to really think about times, I don't think it led to any major issues or corrections or anything like that. There was definitely times where I remember, maybe not the first 2 years, but definitely 3, where pressure had been on me. I think I had not learned to take the step back, and a lot of these things I felt like, I'm responsible for these things. I think it was at a time where I was definitely burning out, in a sense of like, hey, I need to win. I need, really leaning into like, I'm responsible for this change and responsible for this growth. We have, in some instances, it was with clients who are suicidal. In other instances, it was clients who are like on the edge of getting like kicked out of school because they're having so many behavioral issues, mostly because they're just making horrible choices. And so there's definitely a time where I felt like, yeah, my identity, myself is like so tied to it that I need to win. I need to do at whatever cost. So there are some times where it's like I was increasing sessions in community mental health. You can, so pretty freely, especially in intensive outpatient, where it's like, all right, I'm gonna see him Monday to make sure we start off the week well. I'm gonna make sure this time's Wednesday. I'll make sure I'm Friday. Really clamping down on things, like talking to parents, just checking in multiple times throughout the week, kind of really like being close to parents and kind of really pushing them to kind of like, hey, you gotta set the limits, being consistent, all things that are normal, but to the intensity was, kind of limiting a lot of their freedom, allowing them to make mistakes. I was removing that, being able to give the kid space to kind of let things sit in, removing that because I need to have control. I need to be kind of be able to guide this to making, so at least then being able to kind of discount the client being the most knowledgeable in their situation or taking away their autonomy, all because I need this win. And so then all because as a result, not taking a step back, I mean, did it do more harm than good? There's a big possibility of that. Did it also probably take a major hit to my self-esteem and, well, definitely burned out and definitely had some periods of depression because, it didn't feel good. And so I imagine there are a lot of therapists that kind of get there who need a win, who need something and take over more control, have the clients meet more often without being checked, without being open with people about that, without taking or remembering to take that step back. You just take on too much of a toll emotionally. And, if you can't break out of that cycle, then the weight of that can be astronomical.
That comes up a lot in my group supervision.
Ooh.
Yeah, I have a group that I supervise, and that happens a lot where they come in and they're like, well, I already did this, I did that, I did this intervention. They look at me and they're like, what else do I do? And I'm like,
what else you got for me?
I'm like,
help me.
I don't know. And they feel like they have to do everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I always tell them, well, one, what is your role? Remember your role here, because a lot of them
you drop the rock, know your role.
A lot of them end up going to IEP meetings and doing educational stuff, and which we can, right, a small bit. And they take on really heavy case management stuff, and then they're like going into trying to find them housing and things like that. And I'm like, wait, what's your role first, right? And if you're doing everything for them, what are you teaching them, right? And another thing that I like to say sometimes is sometimes you have to let your clients fail. Don't take failure away from them. They learn a lot through those experiences. And even though, we see them about to trip, we really want to catch them, but sometimes they got to learn to catch themselves, right? And so sometimes you have to let them fail. And I smiled earlier when one of you guys said, don't work harder than your clients, because I say that all the time.
That's the seed that's going to grow over time. And that's going to be like, oh, right, that's what that means. And so, yeah, I think it goes back to what Vidur said a lot about anxiety is like that balance. And so going into that, yeah, there's a big piece of which being comfortable with seeing your clients uncomfortable. And so, which feels, once again, that's like, counterintuitive because like, oh, wait, you're a therapist. They're supposed to be in stride with their clients. And it's like, no, they're fine. They're fine to have a little sizzle.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, like how crazy of a concept that is. Like you go fast by going slow.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, so yeah, I will double down, catch 22. So I mean, I think for me, I think that's definitely been one that kind of had popped up even after the 5 years been doing this. I think one thing for sure that did pop up, which I actually don't know if other people have experienced it, which I did want to bring up, was that I started to get the yips, to be honest with you. So when I started working for Kaiser, I feel like I've mentioned it a couple of times, at least then I was seeing about 100 different kids in a month. I mean, gradually increased over time, but still eventually when it was fun, when I was at my peak, I was seeing 100 clients each month. There would definitely be times where I would go on vacation or a 3-day weekend and come back and I would forget how to do it. Like forget the flow, forget my like structure, kind of my essence and how I kind of just move throughout things. So then it was very easy to, I guess you could say like some of those things I used to flood back in because then it's like, oh shit, what do I do? I'm supposed to be responsible. I'm supposed to be helping. I don't feel at my top level. Therapy doesn't look like it should like it does on the TV. Has there been any times where you guys had the yips where you just kind of forget the natural flow of things, muscle memory goes away, and it's just like blank?
Yeah. I think my yips show up when sometimes before a session, I freak out at the idea of it being 50 minutes, and I think, how am I going to fill 50 minutes?
Oh shit,
and
that's true.
Yeah, I feel like one, I'm putting the responsibility on me to fill it. But, you know, when I'm in that mind frame, I can't think clearly like that. So I literally am like, okay, like this last session, we talked about this, so I could follow up on how that part's going, but that'll take like 5 minutes. So then what do I do with the other 45? And I think what is at the root of that is a fear of silence, or a fear of a feeling of lack of productivity, either on me or the client.
Right.
Yeah.
Like I have to
Yeah.
fill
And this
all
every
the
minute
time.
has to be engaging, and we had to be talking. And for me, I'm biased in thinking that verbal processing is the only sign of productivity, but you can process a lot without saying anything, and it can be just as productive as if you said a million words a minute. So I think when I'm in that frantic state, it's impossible to remind myself of these things. And I feel like, man, when this client walks in at 4 o'clock, I'm going to check the clock and it's going to be 4:06. I'm like, oh my God, I ran out of stuff to say already. So like, what do I do?
Yeah.
So it's hard, but I try to remind myself that if I come into a session and just be curious and be open to whatever happens, that
Yeah.
things will happen, and that'll make the time fly by. Like when I'm in that place where I just let things happen, then I look over and it's 4:46 and I'm like, damn, already? So the more pressure I put on myself, the slower time's going to go, and the more on edge I'm going to feel, and the less helpful I'm going to be to my client. But the more I just open myself up to any possibility, even if that means that it's silent for 10 minutes, and that's like a scary 10 minutes, if that's what happens, then it happens. So I think my yips definitely show up in like oh my God, 50 minutes is an eternity. Like what?
Yeah.
Even though I've been doing 50-minute sessions like more often than any other time frame. So that's one thing for me that I feel like is my version of the yips.
Yeah. Sassy?
For me, I think it comes up more during like crisis, so I managed the clinic, and I feel like before I had someone to go to when there was a crisis. So I would have, someone to guide me, and now I'm that person that they go to. And I kind of look back and I'm like, oh wait, no, there's not another person. I'm the one that's supposed to know what to do.
Right. Definitely
And
feel like I have some of those moments in therapy where like, damn,
yeah.
that's crazy. You just see somebody, oh wait, that's me. You're seeing me about that. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've had moments where, therapists will come to my room and tell me a situation, and I'm like, oh yeah, okay, hold on. Let me remember myself what we're supposed to do in this situation. And then, we get the process started. But I have those moments of like freeze, because I'm like, that's it's
Yeah.
I'm being called up to bat, and
Yeah, you're the supervisor
I've
now.
been out of practice for a minute because, I have other roles, responsibilities now. And even though I still do some treatment, it's not my everyday work, right? So when I have those clinicians who need those very specific, supports, I sometimes I'm like, how did this go again?
Right.
I have to Google sometimes a little bit. Like, what's the number to this person or this
Right.
place? And yeah.
Yes, because you are a supervisor now. Since on the topic of yips, do you ever worry about losing your touch now that you're not practicing as much?
Not in my skills, but I do feel like it would be really hard to go back to writing all those progress notes.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I don't know how I used to do them. And I have 2 clients, and even just those 2 notes that I have to write they're really hard to do. So in a sense, yes. But as far as like skills, I don't think so.
Oh, like riding a bike.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fortunately, no longer an issue. I'm not too sure whether it is because I'm not doing therapy as much, or the clients that I see them more consistently than at Kaiser once every other month or once a month. So I have them fresh in my mind. It could be definitely additional practices, like my Sunday reset. Sometimes I kind of am able to sit and like reflect on what clients I see in the coming week, or during the week, since there's much less than 100, I'm able to kind of keep them in mind and kind of marinate on like, okay, what's this next section going to look like? But definitely it's been nice to also avoid the, oh shit, what we're going to do? What am I doing? Is like create a light treatment plan, be able to kind of like, okay, if they have nothing, then we can focus on this. This would be the next step in my plan, or what do I like to see them grow, and so just have that loosely in there, or maybe even reflect on their like treatment goals that they came in with, just to make sure we're on pace and up to date. But there definitely are times where they kind of come in and they don't have anything, and it's just like, oh no, that's fine. Like, that's okay. Hey, if they leave with the gift of time, that's what they'd leave with. And so great. So then this thing always be closing. All right. All right. So this last one, yes, we'll make it. Do your best. You can choose one. Yeah. If you feel like there's the heaviest one that you're kind of dealing with, then so be it. Then you'll invite each other to, hey, ask questions. Each other questions. You guys can ask me questions as well.
How are you doing? Are you hanging in there?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. My sleep schedule's a little off, but I'm this is going as planned. But yeah. All right. So we're heading into just current times. Some of these anxieties that have kind of been able to drop with time over the years, but it doesn't mean that some still do not remain, especially for the future. One thing about anxiety, the fun of it is a lot of it sits in the unknown, the future, most likely. Future worries for things that'll happen, and the fact that we don't have any control of the future until it is here, which then again is no longer the future. There's just more so the possibilities. And so being able to be here in the present allows us to actually act on them and change. But of course, that's the hardest thing, is the not knowing. My definition, a lot of it, and explain to people, because I love the way this book, or well, I'll probably drop in. I love the way they explained it. Is in the sense that it's just anxiety is your mind running away ahead of itself, highlighting all the possibilities of things that could happen and that you should have answers for, or you should be prepared for, or you should know about. If your mind runs way too far ahead into the future and highlights 100 or 100,000 different things, you're going to get overwhelmed, and it's going to be a harder challenge to focus on. If there is some way we can slow your mind in focusing on the few things, the better you are, the better treat your anxiety, plan for it, learn more about it, put things in place. At least then you feel more confident in accepting whatever comes. As much as that we would like to say that will happen, as much as I would like to guarantee my interventions work, they don't, especially when I have to apply them to myself, because, you're working against yourself. You know all your moves and all the stuff, and doesn't stop you from worrying about the future, what may happen, who you'll be with, what kind of person you'll be, or what kind of challenges you'll have to face that are waiting for you. So I like to open the floor up with just more so, what at this point in time, after all the years and everything, after all the fighting with yourself, your anxieties, your fears, your worries, your phobias, if you have them, which of your worries as a therapist have been the hardest, or at least remain to be the heaviest worry of yours that continues to sit with you? And of course, you guys, I would like to welcome all of us to kind of have a candid conversation and ask each other questions if whatever may arise. So rock, paper, scissors to see who goes first, or,
I think I got one. I've been thinking about it throughout our conversation. I worry about the inevitability that, like, I'm going to let my clients down in some way at some point. I might be late to a session. I might be stuck in traffic. I might be sick one day, and I might give them less notice that I would like to, that I can't make it. I might tell them, like, this day and this time doesn't work for me. Does this time work? And they might be like, no. So I should probably see somebody else who can see me on that time, So I feel like the anxiety comes in that the idea that there are an endless amount of possibilities for how I could let down a client, whether it's in a small way or in a big way. And I oftentimes will have no control over what that is,
and that it's unacceptable.
And so the anxiety comes in. I'm like, well, I failed them and now they're going to drop me, or they're going to, they moved on to another therapist because I wasn't good enough, or just they depend on me. They're made themselves so vulnerable to me. They trust me. And then here I am showing up 20 minutes late because I got caught in traffic and they're waiting for me. And now they're going to see me as an incompetent therapist who doesn't care about them. So I think for me, the anxiety comes in not necessarily letting them down, but obviously it is part of that, but also what that would then say about me to them and how they would react, and how I feel like they'd react like super harshly if I did something that bugged them,
So I should also say that therapy questions are not off limits. So if y'all want to dig in, by all means. So, Vidur,
It's turned into group therapy.
how does that affect you on the outside, or your actions?
There are times when I wonder if I not setting boundaries as strongly as I could because I'm worried that if I do, I might get dropped. If I say I can only meet these days at this time, a client might say, oh, well, forget you then. I'm going to find somebody else. As opposed to if I say, oh, no, I'm open. Like, you tell me when's a good time for you and we'll make it work. Sometimes that's possible. Sometimes it's not ideal, but I might feel the need to do it because I want to be there for them and let them know like I'm here whenever it works for you. So I think the way that it shows up, the way that it affects me is it makes me second guess sometimes my boundaries or how strongly or loosely I'm setting them. Because I'm like, am I doing this because I'm worried? Like, is this boundary being influenced too much by anxiety? And it's a little scary to admit that sometimes they might be. But if I'm being real, yeah, probably. Like I might tell a client like, yeah, we can make this time work, even if it'd be really hard for me to make that time work, just because I don't want them to think like, oh, Vidur's not helping me. He doesn't have my back.
Ceci, you got the therapy question on this one.
I do.
Take a stab at it.
So the anxiety piece that's coming for you is the like letting your clients down, essentially, right?
Just come up with a good one. I can feel it. Brewing.
I don't know. I don't know. It's like, I can't put it to words, but your fears of letting your clients down, right? Like, how does that kind of mirror like in your life, like letting your people down, like your friends, your family,
no, it does.
you know?
It's, if somebody asks me to do a favor and I can't do it, I feel like crap, even if it's not like the biggest favor in the world. If I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, I can't make it that day. Or, if a friend like texts me and says, hey, can you talk? Like I'm really going through something and maybe I can't talk because I'm busy or I'm in a session or something, right? Like I feel bad saying like, no, I'm sorry, I can't right now, but like, let me know if you have time later or I'll make time later. So I think it shows up in my life when I can't immediately respond to a need and when I have to tell somebody like, I cannot do what you're asking of me right now. And then I also wonder about, have I let them down? Do they now see me as a bad friend or like a bad family member?
Yeah, that is still a challenge. There's definitely some pieces of real life that kind of bleed in or vice versa as well. So I definitely feel like it's something I have to wrestle with as well. And just being able to kind of still be able to push or still be able to kind of take my time and find it, or at least, do it, rip the Band-Aid off and just like take a few deep breaths and practice self-compassion. So in this, I guess, process of kind of wrestling with it, confronting it, being mindful of it, what do you feel like has been the most helpful thing to remember or to tell yourself?
That I'm not that important. Like if I do let a client down, they might be upset for like an hour, but then something else will happen that'll make them forget about it. Like I'm not the center of anybody's universe. And that's helpful because it reminds me that, I have to always be conscious of how my actions can impact other people, but chances are I'm not going to make or break somebody's day or life. As long as my intentions are sound and, I can stand by my intentions, like that's generally things will be okay as long as I feel good about what I do and I know that my heart's in the right place. So even if I do slip up once in the session or I don't catch something that a client tried to say, most of that is repairable as long as I acknowledge it and I reflect on it. And I'm not the most important person in my client's life and my word isn't like gonna shatter their expectations. So I just remind myself that I'm not as important as my anxiety makes me think I am.
Mm-hmm. Okay. You're important to us, but I mean, All right, Ceci, me or you? Rock, paper, scissors, or what?
I can go next. Yeah.
Yes.
We have our own experiences, our own traumas, our own backgrounds, our own journey. And I think that throughout the time that I've been doing this career, there are certain clients that will come into my office and we're having a session and I'll give like this really great piece of advice. And then I have this moment of like, you should follow your own advice, and then I'm kind of taken into a space where like, oh, I'm now aware of something that I didn't realize I need to work on.
Ooh.
And that's happened a couple of times with like different clients. And they're kind of like tabbed, right? Like in my brain where it's like, I should probably go speak to someone about this particular, thing. And part of the anxieties, the fears of it is like when I come to a point of readiness to go into my own work, right? And being able to then pull out those tabs, the little bookmarks that I put in there about certain situations or certain things. And then how would that potentially change like who I am as a therapist, because every time you process something or revisit something in you changes, right?
Yeah.
So I have a list, that's still pending. Some things absolutely I've have brought up with my therapist, and there's some things that are still there. And like I said, clients
Like
sometimes.
what? Can you share vaguely,
Sure.
generally?
Yeah. I think going back to the cultural piece, parents understanding mental health and knowing that it's like I should also provide some of that psychoeducation to my own parents, to my own family.
Okay, that is a tab. That is a big tab. Okay. Mm.
Yeah, and it's you're right. It's not just a tab.
Yeah.
It's a
It's an A, it's
yep.
B, C within that section.
Yep. And yeah, like I said, I know that at some point all the readiness will be there. But while I get there, I'm trying to, I guess, game plan, right? Because it is gonna be an overwhelming thing to address. And so yeah, I think that's what currently right now is what comes up for me.
Vidur, you want the first one? You want the second one?
I guess I can go first. Yeah. What's of the things that you strive to like apply to your own life, what's the one that's the most challenging?
I think sometimes the being kind to yourself. I say that a lot to clients whenever I see a lot of negative thinking happening. And I always try to teach them to be kind to themselves. And a way that I do that is I always have them externalize their situation. So I have them think of their best friend or their mom or whoever.
Ooh, that was a good one.
And I say, if they were going through this, would you tell them all those negative things that you tell yourself? And oftentimes, no, right? Because we're really kind to other people, the people that we love. And so I always try to teach, like, well, show yourself that same love and kindness. And sometimes I feel like that's one that I have a hard time practicing myself. But when I do become aware of it, I have this moment of like, oh, okay, like I take your own advice. Come on, be kind to yourself, because those negative thoughts are just so automatic, and they're hard to spot sometimes for yourself. And yeah, like I said, when I do get to be more aware of them, I try to apply it, but it is a tough one. Yeah.
All right. So with anxiety, I like to do I try and find that initial fear, like what's the root of, the excitement. And so usually I try to have them do like an if I blank, then this will happen. For you, if you go and you start working on those tabs, what's the worry in an if then statement?
Say the if then statement again.
So if I do blank, then this will happen, and that's the overall worry.
Mm-hmm. I think if I maybe address this, then potentially, I guess particularly like speaking, using like my parent example, like providing some information, more education to my parents about mental health. Like if I do that, then am I going to trigger something that they are not going to be able to, help themselves? I can, because I'm aware now, right? Like I went through school, I understand mental health. So when I do get triggered or, whatever you want to call it, I know where I can go get help, right? I know where I can go to my therapist, I can go to certain people. But I think that my parents are still unaware maybe of where they can go get help. So if I do this, then are they going to be able to then get help? Even if I show them or say, hey, call here, go here, or whatever. And would they even, again, have that readiness to do it?
So then also just for clarification to the other tabs as well, if I go to work on these things, will I then be opening up a can of worms for in other places that they aren't those people or those, the other ends or the other questions, the unknowns out there, will they be resolved or they will be handle themselves? Hence I will also highlight that you can see how within your fear there's the responsibility of, hey, all the cans I open, I must also be able to close them or somewhat responsible for them. So I will not use my therapy question for that one. I'll use it for this next one. So if you had a friend that was going through or having the same worry, what would you tell them?
I think I would tell them that everybody is responsible for themselves. And yeah, I think that's what I would say.
Okay, short, sweet, to the point. All right. Hopefully that's it.
I'll leave it at that.
Oh, so a little bit more, the statement would be a little bit more personal and directed. Maybe you would highlight all your tabs as well, Matt, but okay. All right. Mine's, I don't know. I think it's deep-seated. I don't feel like it is something that was there forever. I definitely feel like it's now here at this phase in my career, or at least, profession or just life crossroads. I don't feel like it is something that kind of grew, started out as one piece and just kind of like bled into things, something else. I feel like I started it off with last season. We were just talking about like, so maybe it is. There's a possibility that it was an initial fear and it kind of grew into something more. But it started off with like burning the candle at two ends, in the sense that, you have your own personal life and you have your professional life, or being a therapist, and things can happen in both realms and they start to kind of dwindle you down to eventually burn out, or you have nothing left. For me now, I feel like it's I guess I'm talking it out. Yes, it is something that grew into something more, in a sense of just, there's some pieces where I kind of wonder about the toll this profession takes on me. I have not been the, most ideal person, at least in my mind. I haven't been awesome. I definitely made a lot of mistakes, definitely hurt a lot of people, especially ones I've loved and cared for. Not as consistent with certain people as much as I would like to, like my goddaughter, and not seeing her as much. I've not made all the best decisions out there. And there are some times where I kind of worry about how that impacts me, how that's bled into my life, and how that kind of could potentially bleed, or it possibly is unknowingly bleeding into my work with my clients. Since being in therapy, I felt like was already there, the base I was working from. One was growing up in a home where it was not so emotionally accepting. There's definitely pieces in which I've learned that I had to kind of create this facade in order to just survive and get by. And that kind of spills off into like other pieces that has pushed me to be either like very self-reliant, self-sufficient, have very high expectations for myself. So at least then that's where some of the anxieties in the beginning of my career kind of like came in, because like I already had that in my own personal life. So now it just carries over into this new aspect. And then veins start to kind of spread out, these vines that kind of take over. And so that's already there. And I've noticed different pieces of that already in my therapy. There's some pieces where I get really nihilistic and it's all on you, and you're the one that kind of creates change, and you're the one that's responsible for your fate and where it goes. So you have to put it in action. All of that, I can feel ties back into my self-reliant, self-sufficient, high standards. You're on your own kind of thing. There's other pieces in which I feel like I was, blissful naivety in believing like, hey, you can definitely listen to people's problems. You can see kids and having their own issues. You can hear parent stories and how their relationship didn't work out and they divorced. You can hear about kids getting abused and harmed. You can hear about people not wanting to live anymore, because what's the point of just feeling pain and suffering and then not be affected by it? And unknowingly, no, these things start to kind of create little issues within my own relationship with other people, my own outlook in having kids, my own outlook in having relationships with people, and what that looks like, and the need for it to be like perfect or like ideal, and like having very rigid thinking, because like I need to put these things in place so that everything goes well, or I end up avoiding all the pitfalls and traps and stuff. Like it'll be perfect if I XYZ, or this person is XYZ for me, or if I take up less space. Therapy has been amazing. I don't know if it's whether it's I come in with a lot of stuff, I've been doing a lot of work on the outside, or my therapist is just like, hey, I got his number, I know exactly what, and he just throws in the perfect. I'm like, damn, that's deep. I'm gonna steal that one. But yeah, a lot of it is coming the question of these two major worries. One being, is there going to be these things that kind of just bleed in and I'm going to kind of corrupt my own clients? Or the other piece of, can I really do this forever? Can I hear all these stories and have it impact me in a way, or not impact me in a way that it kind of, disrupts my own life? Because I would like to have kids and be able to kind of look at that and like, just like, hey, work is work. I'm done with that. That's over there. I can enjoy my time with my kids and not have that kind of bleed in. I can enjoy my time with my wife and not have that worry or like fear just like brewing because I've seen this happen a couple of times, or this red flag is, it's bigger than I think it is. Like, no, it's just blips. So yeah, two for your pickings.
I'm hit, like a lot of things you said, I'm hit by, but the one that I was formulating a question about was the idea of self-reliance. So I'm wondering, like, we've talked a lot about change, right? And like trying something new. So what's a way that you've stepped out of your comfort zone and tried to challenge that thought of, I need to do it all myself? Like, what's one action you've taken to challenge that?
So I'll give like context and then I'll run into it. So at least then it's like my self-reliance has always been like, I'm not going to rely on other people. I'm going to like take things, and go ahead with it. A lot of that's kind of translates into just either just not asking for help, not talking to people, not involving people into kind of what's happening in my life. I kind of just I just do it because there's, no one ever offered help, or everyone's always busy or always doing something. And so there's some piece of like, oh, I'll just do it myself and I don't need to involve people. Being able to involve people in my life and touch base with people a little bit more about how I'm doing, what I'm doing, and being honest about like, no, I'm doing pretty shitty today. And like, hey, you don't have to do anything, but just like, hey, I wanted you to know because you're someone who's important. That's been really good. Being able to kind of like, hey, just because someone's not holding up their end of things doesn't mean that they don't like me, they don't care about me, or they, this isn't important to them. Like, no, it's just everybody else has their own thing. A lot of it's been like a own challenge of like, hey, you got to practice being more patient, practice being more open, practice giving people more benefit of the doubt, like realistic amount, because what I was given was not, even if it means like, I have to wait a little bit longer. There's no rush, even though I may have to push back some of like, my own past and my own experiences of like reminding me like, oh, well, this other thing happened. So I think there was definitely some times where even with the last podcast, my Love Yours podcast, where I kind of was like really self-reliant, kind of like how I was doing with the clients, just taking more and more control to make sure things got done. Like that was a big piece in that. And that might have been something that stressed my partner out, with that kind of causing them to kind of just like blow me off. And so, yeah, just being able to take things slow and, leave things out of my control and give people grace. So even with, whether it's this podcast or whether it's with, my bosses now at work, and just being able to like, hey, I need this. And then they're like, hey, okay, I'm going to tend to this. Being able to, even though it takes them a little bit longer, just being able to kind of recognize that like, hey, that's like, it doesn't mean that my needs aren't important. It's just more so like, hey, I just got to wait and this is perfectly fine. So challenge of working within. Yeah.
You said that you sometimes question if you can do this work forever, or for the duration of your, or longevity of your career. Do you ever play with those like what if scenarios, and what, I guess,
Yeah,
if later on you decide no, how does that feel for you? Or like what's that like next phase?
I think is a question that came at the right time. I think before, when it came to getting ready to leave Kaiser, I wasn't too sure of, during the strike, I wasn't too sure of where life would go. I wanted to be a therapist, but, just where would it take me? I think at the time during the strike, there's a lot of people were applying out there. So I wasn't sure of my value. And me and Vidur were able to have a conversation about that. And just like, actually a lot comes from that, looking for a new position, because they actually are reminded that you are of value. People want you. Like, they see, and it's like, actually, yes, Ceci, like, you have all this experience, you have multiple backgrounds, you experience working in all these populations. Oh yeah, like, we feel like you could do well here. And it's not just one company, it's 5, 6, 7, 10 others who want someone just like you. And you wouldn't have known that if you just stayed in your small pool, or wherever you were.
Mm-hmm.
There's another piece in which me and Vera talked about, was just, there are so many other positions and possibilities that you could do with your experience in other realms and other spaces. And hitting therapy, hitting kind of all these things and these questions, and realizing how these experiences have impacted me, has always got me looking at other opportunities in the psychology field and in therapy, and where that experience and that knowledge can take me. Right now I work for the courts in a particular position that works with families, is work with parents. And so that allows me to do sessions still in private practice, but not to the extent of, seeing 7 clients a day, which I feel like would drain me. So at least then, even then, I'm able to get off work and still feel rejuvenated and in mental space to kind of still hear clients. So that's like, wow, I can divide my time up well there. And so how else could you split your time? You can teach, you can do content, which thank you guys for helping me with this. You can consult, you can do trainings. And so there's a wide variety of things that you can do. It's just more so of, do you have skills? Do you have a plan? You can make products and things like that, self-care boxes and affirmation cards, or like different things. And so, I definitely am challenged to see that and act on it and see whether that's a possibility or whether there might be more for me. You guys have a therapist. Last, final therapist question. And you guys want to toss it out, or should I take that one? I mean, talking about all of that kind of reminds me of, my own kind of approach to anxiety, and forming it more so as a question that's unanswered. And so, can I do it forever? And, whether or not, it will bleed, my own personal life will bleed into therapy, or therapy will bleed into my own personal life. And I think all these things are possibilities. I think it's definitely, this thing could take a toll on all of us. It's just more so of how we handle it and being aware of it, because if you're not, it can definitely impact everything. And so, I mean, it's not uncommon to hear therapists kind of doing crazy things, let alone I think I have a copy of the therapist in here if you guys want to review some spider pages. But keeping in mind of that, I think therapy has been a major help, being able to kind of explore these things. I think being able to catch myself being self-reliant, self-sufficient early enough, and trying to let more people in, even though it's not familiar. I think being able to keep in mind of when I need breaks, and being honest about where I'm at, and being okay with recognizing, hey, these emotions are emotions and they are not forever, but they hold weight, they're truth, and they're a piece of my authentic self. So if this corrupts me, then it's fine for me to be worried about it. I should do something about it. So staying in therapy, or at least having a great group of friends like y'all, it's always good. And, knowing that I can actively engage with you is one of the pieces where I need to keep in mind. As to whether I'd, be able to do this forever. I think if I balance things out, I'll be able to keep going. And like Vidur said, just knowing where the balance, when it's too much and when it's not enough. So we're coming to the end of it. Anxiety is, something that can engulf you. There's definitely a piece in which you gotta keep in mind where you're at, be mindful of what you need, and being able to sit with yourself and sit with those tough questions you have to find answers for. I think, in my experience, and back to my whole piece about how we are all philosophers in this, we all have our own thoughts and our own beliefs and our own opinions of how things are and how things will be. And so for me, anxiety definitely feels like, at times, a big worry of the feelings that we might have if something were to come true, or if something were to happen. And that worry can cause us to do certain things that are not helpful, not appropriate, causing us to either harm others or harm ourselves, or just put ourselves in sticky situations, all for the avoidance of what could possibly might happen, or we could possibly might feel. And so we put, or even worse, we put certain things in place, or we shut off pieces ourselves to avoid that possibility, or cut it down, or we do way more than we should just to further increase the chances of things not happening. And so I like to give you guys with that note, because that's our initial question of just like, it being therapist anxiety being one of the most dangerous things to therapy is if you're not aware of it, if you're not in control of it, if you're not doing anything about it, you can see how you can be. And for that reason, that's why I believe that therapist anxiety can be one of the most dangerous things in therapy. If therapists aren't aware of their own anxiety, what it's doing to them, it can lead them to do harmful things to their clients. It can stop productivity and where the client's going and change. It can put them or take away their agency, their autonomy, or stop them from learning the lessons that they may need to. For you guys from this conversation, I mean, I hope to be impactful. I hope to be doing something. I feel like your guys' words have definitely left an imprint on me. As we wrap up, what's sitting with you at this point?
I think what you just said about like anxiety making us feel like we have to shut off parts of ourselves or deny that we feel anxiety or pretend like, everything's fine. I think one of the ways that I frame like what healing looks like for clients is just being open to all of life's possibilities and living a life that feels fulfilling, even when it's not always great or even when bad things are happening. And I think, yeah, you just reminded me of that. Like if we can acknowledge our anxiety and make a space for it and kind of lean into it, then we allow all of our parts of ourselves to show up, and we don't feel like we have to repress a part of ourselves in order to make it through an experience. And we just say, okay, like I'm open to whatever life throws at me. And I know that some of that will be anxiety, but I know it'll probably be temporary and I have what it takes to get through it. And that just is such a like open mindset and stance. So yeah, I just appreciate what you were saying about like how sometimes we feel like we have to shut off parts of ourselves and how we can try to resist that and try to unlearn that pattern and see what the benefits could be.
I'm very appreciative of the conversation that we're having, and I wish that it happened more often. And something that I'm taking away from this experience is that I'm going to make sure that I make more space for conversations like this to happen in my group supervisions. I mean, there's a lot of really good conversation that happens around clients and interventions and all of that, but we can't forget about the therapist and the anxieties and the fears and potentially the mistakes that happened in session and the work that we do. And it's important to make space for that conversation to happen because, like I said before, there's a lot of learning that happens in your failures and your mistakes and all of that. And yeah, just being here with you guys and seeing how much benefit there is with having conversation like this, that I feel like it's something that I'm going to take with me and model it for someone else. And that way, when those clinicians move on and do something else or even go into a supervision role, that they too will then make that same space. We tend to, well, at least for me, I tend to run my supervisions the way my supervisors, did their supervision groups. And I think there's opportunity to make a change and to model something different so that, moving forward, more of this can happen.
Yeah, that's the hope. I mean, I don't know. I definitely, when starting this stuff, definitely felt like, oh man, how can I have these conversations? How can we really get to an idea of where people are at? Because, I mean, you can't have that, you're not going to talk to the water cooler about it. You're not going to, hey, you want to grab drinks and let's talk. Like, no, it's like, well, I guess in like a podcast, I think that's where all this has been nice to kind of like, oh yeah, there's a mic in front of you guys. But of course, that was just my initial, distortion. It's just like, hey, no, people are willing to talk. We can have these conversations behind closed doors. I think it definitely helps my vision of things. It's just being able to help more people out there because, I mean, yeah, this is knowledge. This is something special. So I'm glad I'm able to share this with you guys. You guys have been awesome. I really appreciate your insight and, guys willing to be vulnerable with me and put up with, my questions. So yeah, of course, you guys are always welcome. But for our listeners, how can they find you? Where will they see you at? Will you drop Instagrams, or you guys, they find you on LinkedIn or Psychology Today?
LinkedIn. I don't have Psychology Today. Not yet.
There you go. So then, yes. Full name.
Cecilia Sanchez-Cruz.
Find that on LinkedIn.
Yeah, hit me on LinkedIn too. Vidur Malik, VIDUR MALIK.
And of course, you guys can continue to, check them out here on Therapy House. This is your host, Jeremiah Knight, signing off. Hey, anxiety, don't let it take over you. It's part of you. Work with it. Don't run from it. If you can overcome it, you'll be a better you in a different place with more confidence. Learn to accept. There's no time machine. There's no going back. What happened. You're here now. And let's step into it. You are prepared enough. You are worth it. And no matter what happens next, you'll be ready.